Good morning, everybody. John Stokely here for Gen AI News from GAI Insights. We have a big news day today. We've got an announcement by Databricks coming into the LLM market. Amazon's doubling down on some investments in Anthropic. We've got some employees that don't believe their leaders are up to snuff in terms of making stuff happen in the generative AI. The Pentagon has got some fantastic stuff on the dominating the information space. They have the best namers in the world, I swear. Goodbye to fact checkers. We've got some stuff in here where some robots are going to get rid of fact checkers, as far as I can tell. Got some interesting additions to benchmarking. And then at the very end, we've got Hume, I imagine, after David Hume, looking into emotional AI, which is not bad. I was having a little conversation with it this morning. But with that, we're going to go over our activities here, and Ankash is going to take us to the first article. Thank you, Ankash.
Thanks, John. So the first one that we have for today is from Databricks. So Databricks has launched DBRX. So it's an open source model, and it's claiming that it has GPT-4 level performance.
Adam, would you mind diving into old Databricks here, vertically integrated?
Not at all.
Intelligence.
I'd love to kick things off. Yeah, look, they've been in the news a lot on our call over the last few weeks and the last month. They announced an investment of an undisclosed sum into Mistral just a couple of weeks ago. I would say at a minimum, this is important news, right? Because they've gone from being a trusted person for people's data to a trusted person with people's data who has a large language model now, which makes them a significant player, in my opinion. Couple things. So their model is actually 132 billion parameters. So it's roughly twice the size of something like Llama 2 or Mixtral. But it uses a similar architecture to Mixtral, what they call the mixture of experts architecture. So what that means is, although it has 132 billion parameters, it will select among a group of smaller models which four are best suited to try and provide the inference and the response. So it actually will provide much faster and lower cost reasoning, because it'll only use 36 billion of those 132 for any single reply. So they're doing some pretty innovative things. They're well positioned. They've been investing heavily. They've been acquiring other AI companies. Yeah, like I said, this is, I could be convinced this is essential to pay attention to, but at a minimum, it's important.
All right, we got a interesting, important from Adam. Other thoughts on our MOE entry by Databricks?
I agree. There's a whole bunch of reasons this is at least important. One is it's showing the, pseudo Moore's law advancement of these models. It's not just compute power, but also architecture, because it's software, and it's making a big difference. So as Adam pointed out, this thing is more energy efficient and much more efficient doing inference because it uses a much smaller number of parameters. And also, as Adam pointed out, I would double down on Databricks owns a lot of people's data already. They have a different strategy. They're going at the custom built models inside the firewall.
Yeah.
And I think that's a natural for them. And if they lower the price enough, as I was talking with some folks about this just the other day, everybody's like, oh, well, nobody can afford to build a model. Well, nobody can afford to build it right now. This model was still what I think they noted, $10 million to build.
Yes.
But that's $10 million compared to, billion or so for the first models. So we're already down several orders of magnitude in cost. And I think we're headed further, and all of a sudden building your own model doesn't seem so overwhelming.
Yeah,
and it has lots of advantages. So lots of change, lots of advance, and a company that owns your data is going to be an important player. This is the first real fruit, I think, of their purchase of Mosaic ML.
Yeah, that's why I gave it important was, we're always talking that our audience is the enterprise leader, and so many enterprises have Databricks. So just right there, hey, you better listen to what they're doing. There's some options there. So I definitely think it's an important for our leaders to read it.
Yeah, awesome. I think competitively, this is another option, and in a sense, because of the data integration and safety, it's a better option than other LLMs. So competitively, this introduces some pressure on getting the models even cheaper and even better. So yeah, certainly important.
Yeah, in our buyer's guide, we talked a lot about the importance of distribution when you're going to choose a model, and when you look at the competitive landscape. And clearly, these folks have distribution. So we're going to land on an important, on its way to essential, and off to our next article, please, Ankash.
Okay, the next one is from Amazon. So Amazon has now completed its investment in Anthropic, and the total investment is now $4 billion.
All right, we have Amazon doubling down. I don't know if it's cash or compute power, but Luda, what do you think here?
I think it is important for the AI leader to know that this is happening. This is can be taken as a vote of confidence. We really don't know. It might be just a financial decision, because Anthropic certainly has increased in value since the first tranche of this investment in September, and Amazon gets to invest at the same valuation as in September. So it might have been a financial decision, but it also, they wouldn't do it unless they believe in Anthropic. So it's a vote of confidence, and I think the AI landscape is better for it. So important.
Important. We got an important here. What do you think, Timothy? Got anything
This one's
on here?
optional for me.
Optional.
They already made most of their investment. They were running down on their investment time. It is, I think, a combination of cash and probably, I'm going to guess, mostly compute. They're all in for Anthropic. Plus, honestly, it's a sad thing to say, but this is chump change for them. And so, as Luda pointed out, from a balance sheet perspective, this is an immediate gain because they're basically investing at a prior valuation. So it looks good for them. It's not a lot of money, especially not a lot of cash. And what else are they going to do, right? They're heavily involved with Anthropic. And so far, Anthropic's doing okay. So yeah, it's a vote of confidence. It's a short article, but I wouldn't waste a lot of time on it.
All righty. So anybody going to do a tiebreaker here, or I'm going to do a tiebreaker? Tanya, what do you say? Optional, important.
I gave it important. I gave it important because I think it reassures, right, the market that, hey, Anthropic is not going away. It's also, it's nice to have, someone competing against Microsoft and OpenAI, and who better than Amazon, right? That has the money. So I gave it important. And to your point, I mean, Tim, it's a short article, right? So.
All right, we're going to
I
land
will
on.
say one more thing.
Mm-hmm.
Just remember that a vote of confidence at this level, again, as John has taught me over the last several months, is not that meaningful for these people's bottom line. And look at what happened to Inflection, which raised over $1 billion. Okay, over $1 billion, which we would have thought would have been insurmountable just 5 years ago for a company to basically fold, having raised that much capital. So just a word of caution that amount of investment does not necessarily in this market correlate to a guarantee of success.
Yeah, and I think Inflection, in the words of my Polish grammar, I think that was cash money. I don't think that was just, compute. But
that's right.
There you go. All right. Well, we're going to go for important. The elephants are mating here. So here we have it. Ankash, next.
Okay, so next one is a report from the learning platform Udemy, and their report highlights that there is a gap between employees and executives' expectations around Gen AI.
All righty. I have to give these, as a guy who used to be chief marketing officer at a services company, I have to give these people, an A on creating research to try to create primary demand for your product. So God love them. Tim, you've been in a situation where your management and, you've also been a doer puppy many years ago. What do you think is going on here with the?
This is an ad. Come on, this is an ad. It's half the articles about how hopelessly undereducated leaders are, and half the is about how Udemy can provide that education. The standard process. I mean, it's probably true at a certain level. Again, I think all of us in our conversations with senior executives continue to find out they are very unfamiliar with this technology. Some of them have never even tried it, although I think at this point, most have at least tried it. But they're very unfamiliar with it, and that leaves a gap. But this is, such an obvious ad that it's hard to take it seriously. And there's nothing behind the, how did they do this? Who did they talk to? All that kind of stuff.
I had to laugh if you took any initiative and asked people, how confident are you in senior management to take you through initiative X?
Right.
I wonder what the average is. Just less than half, It's like those knuckleheads, they couldn't get it, whatever.
Yeah, exactly.
Internally at my work, the commentary was they were surprised to see the numbers were so high.
Me too.
At 40%.
Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. 40% believe their executives are ready. It's like, really? That seems a little high. I agree this is optional. I would say if people get a chance, when you go through to Udemy, and from there you can give them your email and actually get the report.
Yes.
The report actually has some interesting insights in it that might be worth taking a look at in terms of the 25 people they surveyed across all levels within organizations. But this article itself doesn't really offer much.
All righty. So we're going to optional. Sounds good. Thank you, Tim. Next, Ankash.
The next one comes from Pentagon. So Pentagon has tested GenAI to draft supply plans in latest Guide 9 for games. So this seems scary to me.
I agree.
Yeah. I will say that these folks, it's been my experience with my friends in the military and the military contractors. They have the coolest names. They have these testosterone-laden names that are just like, Ugh. Anyway,
was it a global information dominance experiment?
Yes. Global information dominance.
So John, I as I was reading it, I was thinking of you because you've said many times, like, hey, this technology is going to be revolutionary, right? For military users, there are going to be so many ways of taking advantage of this. So the article talks about, the supply chain logistics and how boring that work can be for the military, but how necessary, right? How human it is, how repetitive, and how the systems really today don't talk. And you may have even things like in sticky notes. I thought that was kind of scary. But anyway, so making these quick decisions on how to get, things to build up bridges, given we just had that bridge collapse here, supplies and getting them at the place where, you need them at a certain time and coordinate trains and airplanes and, what level in a war zone. So there's just a lot of decisions that need to be made and a lot of data. And so generative AI is really a great use case, right, for them. And so the article talks about they are doing this testing. They gave generative AI tools to one group, and to the other group they didn't. And they just kind of, gave them a use case, and a scenario, and they worked on it. And really, people couldn't tell the difference of the decisions that were made, whether it was the tool or not. What they did say is that while they're amazed about the technology, they do not want the technology to make decisions on its own. They still want the human to be accountable, and they said that very clearly. They're not going to say this was OpenAI's fault or any other LLM's fault. And then the part that I loved the most was the quote from one of the leaders of the project that said they look at vendors and suppliers in terms of the wild, the zoo, and the cage.
Yeah.
The wild is the internet, everything that's out there. The zoo is being within the perimeters of the Department of Defense, and the cage is containerizing all of that. And so when they look at vendors and suppliers of this technology, they're really looking at those that can support the zoo or the cage, because obviously they have to protect not just the data that they use to train, but also all of the answers.
Sure.
Anyway, so I gave this important, but I was also thinking I could even go to essential on this, because while the military is now using an enterprise solution and adopting it, usually it's the other way around, right? We learn from the military. I do think that how they adjust and adopt it and the frameworks they put in place and the security controls, it's something that the enterprise will take back from them. So I'm into importance or essential on this.
All righty, we got an important. on its way to essential. Other opinions?
Yeah, I agree. It's a compartmentalization, just to get your terms right, having worked a little bit in this area, not containerization, which is about Kubernetes. So yeah, so the cage is the most sensitive stuff. You have to leave your cell phone at the door kind of stuff, and you're locked in a tank, as they call it. And I think it's important for a couple of reasons. One is I've written about information asymmetry. This is a classic case of information asymmetry. There's just way too much information for a single human to decide in the time frame you need to make the decision. And that's a good case to look for across enterprises. Anytime you have lots and lots of information and you need to make a decision fairly quickly with a human involved, this is going to be quite helpful. The other is, you know, the military, you can have whatever opinion about them you want. They're pretty rigorous because there are lives on the line. So anytime there are lives on the line, they take it pretty seriously. So this is another one of those, what I call good to have in your back pocket examples. Well, if the military is doing this, they have figured some things out, and they're confident that they can do it in situations where lives are on the line. So yeah, we can probably use this for our own supply chain logistics. All
righty. Well, as Napoleon said, an army marches on its stomach. So big deal, right? And kind of an interesting image when you think about it. But anything else we're going to go for important, unless there's somebody who feels strongly either side of that, O or E? All right. We're landing on important for the Pentagon. Now we have next one on Kash.
Okay, so the next one is a research paper. So it talks about how we can use a method called search augmented factuality evaluator, which breaks down a long LLM response into a set of individual facts, and then we can check the accuracy of those facts.
Well, I will just say that the computer scientists are now rivaling the consultants in terms of making up terms. So God love it. You know, maybe they're getting the robot to help them too. But how about this, Luda? Death of fact checkers or what?
Well, remember, it's a lot of scare out there for implementing LLMs is that they can get the facts wrong. And this is a paper that's pushing forward a metric to evaluate how wrong is wrong, or how factual the responses are. And it's doing a pretty good job at it. So I think even though it's a research paper, it's very important for the leaders to know that this is happening and they can use this method to evaluate their own application. So what it was, right, they asked GPT-4 to generate a set of prompts with thousands of questions about 38 topics. And then they put together this method, search augmented factuality evaluator, SAFE, to essentially using LLM to evaluate the performance and the accuracy. And then they compared it with crowdsourced human annotators, and 72% the SAFE agreed with them. And when it was the right answer, and in the disagreement cases, SAFE won 76% of the time. So it's quite a push forward in the metrics to evaluate the accuracy, and I think we should rate it as important.
All right, we get important here. I like the idea of, you know, if you think of RAG as kind of pre-processing and then the LLM, and then this stuff is almost like post-processing the info, you know what I mean, to get to the facts you want. What do you think, folks? Important, optional, essential? I
call this optional, and there's a couple of reasons. That it is a research paper. We generally wait till these things are a little more baked. It's interesting in some ways at the architectural level as to how they went about it, and can we use some AIs to check on other AIs. I think the practicality, Luda, somewhat company actually saying, oh, I'm going to stand this up and use it, is pretty low right now. You have to be pretty sophisticated to pull that off. They could, but it's not for the faint of heart. And the other thing that, you know, is sort of more at the philosophical level, so I'll say it very briefly, is oh my God, we've really gotten there. If it's on the internet, it's got to be true, because that's basically their fact checking. So first of all, we're using a unreliable, error prone technology to generate all the questions. Anybody checking the questions? Second of all, we're determining the validity of the results of those questions by agreement with the Google search. It's like, well, okay, we're going down a bad hole here, and I hope it turns out okay.
Yeah, no, Tim, you have good points. However, we've had a number of cases, large companies putting out bots that really did a bad job of coming up with answers. So if you're in that position, this is a framework that if you wanted to, you could amend and adjust for your own purposes, but not put out a really half-cooked something or other out there. So I think it's useful to know.
Yeah.
All right.
I wouldn't argue with that. I'm just,
Yeah.
where do you spend your time?
No, it's not for general adoption, but we didn't have that many metrics per se to evaluate accuracy. And this is a framework. So that's why I'm still important.
I agree. I'm questioning whether a human annotator looking at a Google search is, again, comparing that as a useful comparison as compared to somebody who might actually know something about the subject.
Yeah, no, understood.
Adam, you got a feeling on this one?
I was on the fence as well. I was leaning towards optional. Just a couple of days ago, we were talking about RAFT, which is a combination of retrieval augmentation and fine tuning. But that was having a human in the loop. This is sort of taking the human out and relying on the collective intelligence of what Google can supply as the way to determine whether or not it's coming up with the right answers. I'm leaning towards Tim's opinion that I would wait and see. It seems like a little bit loose science to rely on Google searches as the source of truth as well. But it's research, I guess, which is why I was leaning towards optional over important. But I agree, it's another really innovative approach to solving these problems.
Yeah, I think
I'm not really helping.
No, that's fine. I think I'm going to land on important to get people, because of the architectural thing that we're dealing at, a main problem, hallucinations. You put this together with some of the stuff we heard from Databricks, and all of a sudden you got a different take on a model. You can do a cheap model inside. Yes, it's not for the faint of heart, but making money, as a friend of mine once said, if making money was so easy, there wouldn't be so many poor people. So there you go. And let's go to the next one. And we'll do this one as important.
Okay, so the next one is around inference performance benchmarks for LLMs. So there are new ML Perform Inference V4 benchmarks, which shows how fast the inference capability of LLMs is growing.
All right, we're 24 minutes in here, 23 and a half. This is going to, so we have to pick up the pace a little here. Tim, what do you think?
Optional.
Optional.
This
All
is
right.
a press release.
Yeah.
Unclear it adds anything. There's lots of benchmarks. It's like standards. The joy of standards. There's so many to choose from.
All right.
It's a nothing burger. Nothing burger.
Nothing burger. Okay. Any disagreement there? Optional? All right. Optional it is. Ankash, next. We're going to our last and final. Get Hume AI.
Yes, John. So the last one is from Hume AI. So basically, they have raised $50 million in funding for their AI chatbot. The differentiator that they are claiming is that their chatbot provides a more emotional and realistic experience.
All right. What do you think here, Tanya?
Well, since we're short of time, I would say watch the movie Hero 6. It's a children's movie, and it has a little robot that's very empathetic to the child who had just lost a family member. I think it was the mom or something. That's what this made me think. I love the term in the article, ELLM, emotional LLM. I do think that it's an important article to read, especially if you are in that healthcare side of things. I do think that having LLMs that can understand our voice, our emotions that come through our voice, having this one is mostly voice, but I think overall just understanding our emotional state is really the future. I mean, I do think we're going to move away, and the article talks about it, I think here, or something else that we read, we're going to move away from typing and doing that kind of thing. Everything is going to be voice. So for these robots to understand our emotions is going to be very critical. So I guess that would be my quick summary. Watch the movie, read this article.
And
Important.
Important, yes. Obviously, the movie didn't make that big an impact on you because you can't remember who died, but that's okay.
But the robot, you remember the robot? It's so cute.
You were
And he's
attached to the
soft.
robot. I love it. Yeah, emotion, voice. Where is this? We doing optional? We doing
I think it's optional again. I could be talking to important. It's a money raising announcement. And again, this is how fast the market's moving. Is we don't even think of voice as all that important. I think it is important.
Oh,
it's the empathic LLM they call it. But empathy's been studied as John, you and I know, all the way back to Roz Picard, which is now what 30, 40 years ago.
Yeah.
But this is making it real. But lots of people already kind of do this to a certain extent. I agree with Tanya. For healthcare, more important. But maybe elsewhere as well. But this one in particular, if you have time to read it, sure. But it's a money-raising PR announcement at the end of the day. We'll see where it goes.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
I would go optional as well, just because there are others out there. So emotions are important. I agree with Tanya very much. But this particular article doesn't really. Yeah, it's money-raising announcement. So I think it's optional.
I would have given it an optional myself, but I would argue for important because if you click on the link, you can actually interact with the thing. So it's money raising, but it's there and you can experience it. I think I mentioned once before in this thing, I had an experience with Rita Singh and the technology out of CMU Carnegie Mellon back about 5 years ago. They took 60 seconds of my voice and that was it. And with that 60 seconds, they were able to get a profile of my face, guess my weight within 5 pounds, my height within an inch, my age within a year, my blood pressure within 5 points. It gave a psychological profile. It also was able to do the room, and it said there was something wrong with my skeleton, and I have a metal knee. 60 seconds of voice did all that. So I think this is. I don't think I just put Rita's homepage in the chat for folks who are interested. So I'm going to give this an important because of the not. I agree with you. It's a money raising thing, but for the link that you can click to and interact with, it's kind of a fun little model. I was hacking around with it this morning. All righty, Ankash, where are we? And here we have. Whoa, we got a middle road here. We got important, optional, important, optional, important. All right. We are, as they say in Buddhism, on the middle way. A bunch of things that are interesting to read if you have time, a couple of optionals. And I think, it just amazes me how much we continue to have activity in this marketplace. And thank you, Ankash, for the great work you do to find interesting things for us and our readers. And we have, don't forget, the newsletter link is in the invitation. You can get this in newsletter format. And here we are on Thursday. No new announcements from me. Any announcements from the team? All right.
We know what's happening on the Monday Learning Lab yet?
Nope. I will know tomorrow. Of course, we have Monday Learning Lab, 7:00 Eastern Time, US, and we'll get you what's there by tomorrow. And have a great day, everybody. And watch out for the artificial intelligence and natural stupidity.